on their short sleeve shirts. I'll give everybody a chance to set up. I'll make a couple of opening comments. Be happy to take questions, and y'all just tell me when everybody's ready. Okay. Well, I want to thank y'all for coming out. I'm thrilled to be here with the Polk County GOP for their Christmas celebration. I'll be talking later tonight. One of the most important themes I'll be talking about is the need here in America to restore the American dream for our children and grandchildren. What does that mean? You know, President Obama and the left, they've been trying to redefine the American dream to make it about redistribution and government dependence. The American dream is really about equality of opportunity, not equality of outcomes. The American dream is really about the fact the circumstances of your birth shouldn't determine your outcomes as an adult. The American dream is that a child doesn't have to be born to wealthy parents or the right zip code and to a particular neighborhood to do great things in our country. If our children are willing to work hard, get a great education, they should be able to follow their dreams. Every generation has left more opportunities to our children than we've inherited from our parents. Now, there are many things this administration is doing that I disagree with. $18 trillion of debt, an EPA that's smothering our economy, a failed foreign policy, Obamacare, but the most dangerous thing would be the redefinition of the American dream to make it about government dependence instead of growth and opportunity. We will now have a new majority in the Senate in D.C. We'll have a larger majority in the House. We'll have 31 Republican governors. It is time for Republican leaders to govern. We've been given a chance to lead the country. We need to govern according to our conservative principles. So in D.C., for example, we need to stop the president from issuing an illegal executive order to grant amnesty. We need to repeal and replace Obamacare. We need to encourage energy independence. We need to provide school choice. We need to restore our military and restore our foreign policy so that our friends trust us and our enemies fear us. There's a lot of work to be done. We need to be bold. We need to govern according to our principles. Final thing I'll say is that the American people are looking for big changes in D.C., not incremental changes. They're looking for big changes. The American people, for the first time in a long time, are worried that their kids will have fewer opportunities than they themselves inherited from their parents. That's un-American. Our best day should always be ahead of us, not behind us. To me, that means rebuilding the American dream for our children and grandchildren so they know that they will have the opportunity to grow up in the greatest country in the history of the world. I want to thank the folks for inviting me here, and I hope everybody has a great Christmas season. And happy Hanukkah. Today's the first night of Hanukkah. Be happy to take questions.
Governor, Jeb Bush just announced that he was going to seriously explore running for president. Can a candidate like who supports Common Core and immigration, will that hurt him, do you think?
Look, I'd say a couple of things. I've long said that I hope anybody that's thinking about running, who's seriously thinking about getting into this election, I would hope they would seriously consider doing so. I think the more choices for the voters, the better. I would hope that voters would get a chance to go and vote for somebody instead of voting against somebody. And when it comes to Governor Bush, I happen to like governors. I think that, and I've been saying this for a while now, that's not particular to this election cycle. I think governors have more executive experience. They have more practical experience. The reality is we've got a president today who hadn't run anything before he was elected president of the United States, and it shows. In the Republican Party, we point to Ronald Reagan as one of the most successful presidents in modern times. The Democratic Party likes to point to Bill Clinton. Both of those are former governors. So I think that governors make for good candidates because they have executive experience. They've got the ability, they've set priorities, they've balanced budgets, they've got track records. When it comes to the governor's specific stand on issues, look, if he decides to run, he'll have a chance to present his case and make his case to voters. I think it's a good thing if more people end up running. I think it's good that voters will have choices. I think it'll be good that voters will get a chance to vote for somebody. I do get this sense. Having traveled and campaigned for several candidates this past year, it is my sense that voters are looking not for incremental change in D.C., they're looking for big change. Voters right now are very frustrated with President Obama and the left. However, those same voters will be very frustrated with the Republican Party if they don't see big change from their elected leaders. They have given the Republican Party a chance to lead. If they don't do something with that, those same voters will be just as frustrated with the Republicans. Too often, you hear from the so-called smart guys in D.C. that you can't do big things. So they tell you can't balance the budget. They tell you can't repeal Obamacare. They tell you can't make big changes. That's nonsense. We need to remember that Hillary Clinton started working on health care back in the 90s. It took the left nearly 16 years to take over our health care, ultimately through Obamacare. It may take some time for us to regain all of our freedoms, but that is a fight worth fighting. We need to start that fight now. So I think people are looking for big change from their leaders. They're looking for big change in D.C.
Do you have any specific concerns about his position on Common Core?
Look, it's no secret that the governor and I disagree about Common Core. But if he decides to run, I think he'll have a great opportunity to make his case directly to voters. I think it's healthy for the Republican Party. They're going to be folks that end up running that will likely disagree with me on a number of issues. If I decide to run, I'm sure that not everybody's going to agree with me with my decision not to expand Medicaid. I'm sure not everybody's going to agree with me with my opposition to the president's order on amnesty, or my opposition to Common Core, or some of my other positions, my positions on religious liberty. I think it's good that voters have a chance. I'm absolutely opposed to this idea of party insiders, the party establishment, donors, or anybody other than voters picking our candidates, picking our nominees for us, picking our leaders for us. I think it's a healthy thing to have an open debate and a range of views.
Is Governor Bush a member of that party establishment? Would you define him as a member of the GOP establishment?
Look, I think that the governor brings a wealth of experience from his time in Florida. If he wants, if he decides to become a candidate, I think he'll have many opportunities to present himself to the voters. When I say I don't want the establishment picking our nominee, I mean folks like donors and folks in D.C. I'm talking about folks that think that anybody other than the voters, anybody that's willing to put themselves in front of the voters, I respect that, and I think that's the way it should be. I think it should be an open contest where the voters get to decide who they want to lead them. So when I say I don't want the establishment picking our leaders, what I'm talking about is some folks have suggested, well, you don't want to have a lot of candidates fighting each other or debating each other, or, you know, it may be messy if they end up disagreeing. You know what? Democracy's messy. And that's the way it was intended to be. And it's better than all the alternatives, as Churchill famously said. What we don't need is some super smart committee getting behind closed doors and saying they're going to pick our leaders for us, our nominee for us, our candidates for us. We don't need that. And you've heard some folks in the Republican Party, some voices saying, well, you need to clear the field, or you don't need to have as many debates, or you don't need to have an open and honest exchange of ideas. I think that's nonsense. I think the more people that want to run, the better for the party, the better for the voters. I think ultimately it'll strengthen our nominee. I think ultimately it'll make them not only a better candidate, but ultimately a better president as well. So I think that if there are others that are thinking about running, I hope that they'll seriously consider doing it. And again, I am partial to governors. So I hope that if there are other governors, and we've got a great bench. I think it's a great thing, by the way, that we've got so many experienced and potential candidates on the Republican side. There have been too many elections where people felt like they had to vote against somebody. That's an awful reason to go to the voting booth. I really hope people can be excited for their choice, go vote for their first choice, say, I'm excited about this candidate. Even if voters end up disagreeing with me, if I were to be a candidate, I hope they'd be able to find somebody. If they want somebody who's for Common Core or Medicaid expansion or taxes or tax increases or whatever, I hope they're able to find that candidate and go vote for that candidate. That's the way it should be.
When will you decide to?
My wife and I are thinking and praying about this over the holidays. We will make this decision in the first half of next year. I'll say this, if we were to decide to run, I think a major issue, a major theme, a priority, and it should be a priority for anybody thinking about running, is the restoration of the American dream. And I really do believe that this president could do great damage for many years to come if he succeeds in redefining the American dream to be about redistribution, government dependency, instead of opportunity and growth. That's what I think is at stake here. And I think we've got to show folks that our conservative principles will help them and their children join the middle class.
You've listed a lot of reasons why people you think should get in the race. Any that you're weighing that would keep you out of the race?
Look, for Supriya and me, for when we first decided to run for office, it had nothing to do with polls, had nothing to do with fundraising, had nothing to do with whoever else was in the race. What we really needed to pray about, to think about, to consider was whether we had something unique to offer, whether we felt like we could make a difference, whether we've got a different perspective or different policy positions or different experience that can add something that would be a benefit. And that's what, when I ran for governor in Louisiana, it was because I truly believed we had to change our state. We were coming out of Katrina. We were reeling as a state. We'd gone through over 25 years of losing our children, our sons and daughters, and I wanted to be a part of turning that around. So for me, in terms of making a decision, if I were to decide to run, it would have to be about whether we can make a big impact, a positive impact for our country, and whether we had something unique to offer to the race. I don't think it makes sense to think about it in terms of fundraising, political consultants, polls, other candidates. I know that that's how many candidates look at elections. I think it's better to think and pray about whether there's something unique we can bring to the election, whether there's something unique we can bring to the country, not only to our party, but to the country as well. These are serious times for our country.